the New School, for putting this on tonight. This is one of the most remarkable movements that I've seen in my lifetime, precisely because it really isn't a movement in the traditional sense. And I think that it has succeeded because it hasn't followed the old motifs that we're used to in terms of organizing, but it has its roots in all the good works that so many people have done for so many years, especially in the last 30 years since Reagan took office, and the decline and destruction of the country and essentially the world began its modern day disaster. I think that you know, so many people have done so many good things, and we've always had different groups and different constituencies that people have been able to rally behind different causes. But this, from what I've seen, and like you said, I've been to maybe a half a dozen or more of the different Occupy things. This thing has spread like wildfire. I mean, it is. I wish you could have been traveling with me the last few weeks. It has been the most uplifting, heartening thing to see. So many Americans of all stripes deciding that they're just going to occupy, and they don't have to call in to Central Command for permission. There are no dues to pay. There's no leader to get permission from. There's no meetings, subcommittee meetings, you know, all these things you have to go through. It literally is something as simple as some people in Fayetteville, Arkansas just decide to create Occupy Fayetteville, and then 400 people show up. I was in Grass Valley, California, Nevada City, 400 people there. You don't hear about any of these because, well, the media either won't or can't cover it because they've been so decimated themselves in terms of reporters and bureaus that don't exist anymore. So it would be impossible to kind of show the breadth and the scope of this movement. But it is massive. It is building each week, and everybody feels that they have permission to be their own leader. And the reason why I think this works, I know a lot of people can say, well, you know, it's got to get more organized, or it's got to have a plan, or it's got to, what's the agenda? What's the way forward here? What's the next step? You know, it's enough right now that this movement just, first of all, it's already had some important victories. It has alleviated despair in this country. It has killed apathy. It has changed the conversation in a profound way. 8 weeks ago, all we were listening to was about the debt ceiling and the deficit crisis, and those of you nobody's talking about that distraction any longer. They're talking about the real issues now that are facing the majority of Americans: jobs, the fact that millions of homes are underwater, that 50 million people don't have health insurance. We have 49 million living in poverty now. We have 40 million adults who cannot read and write above a 4th grade level. They're functional illiterates. That's the nation that corporate America and the banks and Wall Street have created. And when somebody asked me the other day, well, who organized this? Who organized this movement? And I said, well, actually, Goldman Sachs organized it. Citibank organized it. BP organized it. They did the organization. And I think that, you know, if you want to trace the current roots to this, somebody, I was being interviewed the other day, well, you know, at the end of your last movie, you were wrapping the crime scene tape around the stock exchange, and you called for this uprising. I said, no, yes, I did, but you know, it's not that. It's not a magazine from Vancouver. It's not. If you really want to pin it down to somebody, I would thank Bradley Manning, and here's why. A young man with a fruit stand in Tunis became very upset because he couldn't figure out why he was just getting screwed and why he couldn't make it. And he read a story put out by WikiLeaks that exposed how corrupt his government was. And he just couldn't take it anymore. And he set himself on fire. That event, by giving his life to this, created the Arab Spring movement that went across the Middle East and then boomeranged back here to what has been going on in the fall here in North America. And but if one courageous soldier hadn't, allegedly, done what he had done, if he hadn't done this, who knows? But it was already boiling just beneath the surface, and it just needed somebody to get it going. And thank God for you and your friends who went down there on that first day, who endured the ridicule first, then the attacks, and then the attempts to co-opt. But they have held strong, and it's not now. It's not just the people who can camp out overnight. It's 72% of the American public who say they want taxes raised on the rich. That's never happened before in this country. It's people taking their money out of Chase and Citibank and Wells Fargo and putting it in their credit unions, and it's taken so many forms that, and it can't be stopped. And it's so great to watch Fox News and the others try to wrap their heads around it, because they can't get their brain quite, it can't grab onto it, which is great. That's what's great. So I'm a big supporter of it staying leaderless, with a lack of a certain amount of organization, that it remain in its free and open state, and thank God for all the young people who are willing to not take it anymore. And I've just been inspired by it, and I'm glad that I got to live to see what I believe or hope will be the beginning of the end of a very evil system that is unfair, and it's unjust, and it's not democratic. So thank you.
Patrick, you were one of the